Hello, you guys. Did you know that we only have two more lessons until we are done with all of the Block 1 information that you need to know for your final Block 1 test? That's awesome. Super exciting. So, today we have a lesson on solving inequalities. So, I'm just going to start with talking to you about what an inequality is and how inequalities are different than equations. Okay, so take out your piece of paper and have something to write with, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, we know that equations have equal signs. Okay, when we're talking about solving inequalities, we're talking about inequalities are greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. Okay, when we solve an inequality, there's going to be more than one solution that makes the statement correct. Okay, so let's say I give you the inequality statement of x is greater than 5. Okay, if we want to figure out what we can plug in for x to make this a true statement, well, we know that whatever we're going to plug in has to be bigger than 5. Okay, so if this is our number line, okay, let's say that this is 0, and let's say that 5 is right here, okay, and as we move to the right on the number line, the numbers increase in value. As we move to the left on the number line, the numbers decrease in value. Okay, so we know that anything that is bigger than 5 is going to make this true. Okay, so 5 won't necessarily make it true, but anything bigger than 5 would make it true. Okay, so like if we plugged in a 7, 7 is greater than 5. If we plugged in a 10, 10 is greater than 5. If we plugged in a 22.6, that is greater than 5. Okay, so anything that is to the right of 5 on the number line would make this a true statement. The reason 5 does not work is that 5 is not greater than 5. This is not true. Okay, so let's just look at another one really quick, just so I can make sure that you understand how inequalities work. Let's say we have x is less than or equal to 10. Okay, if we want to figure out what we can plug in for x to make this a true statement, well, x has to be anything that is less than 10, okay, less than 10, or equal to 10. So if this is our number line, and this is 0, and this is 10, okay, if we graph the solutions of what x can be, well, x can be anything less than 10. So all of these numbers would give us a true statement. And it can also be 10. Okay, we know that 10 is less than or equal to 10. Okay, and then we can pick any of these other numbers that are to the left of 10 on the number line, because moving to the left gives us numbers that decrease in value. Okay, so all of these numbers right here would be less than 10. So if we wanted to pick 1, 1 is less than or equal to 10. Maybe we wanted to pick a negative 4. Negative 4 is less than or equal to 10. Okay, maybe we want to pick a negative 6.5. Well, we know that negative 6.5 is less than or equal to 10. So when we talk about our solution for this inequality statement, we just need to know that our solution can be more than one number. Okay, there's more than one possibility of numbers that we can plug in to make this true. Okay, so with that said, when you solve inequalities, it is just like solving an equation, but don't forget to flip the inequality symbol if you multiply or divide by a negative as your last step. Okay, so solving inequalities is just like solving equations. When we solve an inequality, we are trying to isolate the variable by using inverse operations. Whatever you do on one side of the inequality, you've got to do the exact same thing on the other side to keep it equal. Okay, so let's say we have this inequality statement right here. X plus 3 is less than 8. If we want to solve this inequality, figure out what we can plug in for x to make this statement true, we're just going to solve for the x. We're going to isolate it. And you guys know that if we want to get the x by itself, we're going to have to get rid of this plus 3. The opposite of adding 3 is to subtract 3. So x can be anything that is less than 5. So if this is our number line, and if we're going to graph the numbers that can be a solution here, if this is 5, x can be anything less than that. Can you guys see how that works? So x could be 4, it could be 3, it could be 2, it could be 1, it could be negative 7, it could be negative 10 and a half. Okay, anything that is less than 5 is going to make this inequality true. And notice that we do not include 5 in our solution. Okay, let's look at the next one. So remember, this is just like solving equations, except for if you multiply or divide by a negative as your last step, you have to flip the inequality symbol. And I'm going to show you how that works on this example right here. We'll call this example number 2. Okay, so if we want to solve this inequality for the x, that means we want to isolate the x. We want to get the x all by itself. Our first step is to get rid of the plus 5. We do that by doing a minus 5. If we subtract 5 from one side, we've got to subtract 5 from the other side. So negative 2 times x is greater than or equal to 8. Okay, now from here, we want this to just be an x. So we've got to get rid of this multiplication of negative 2 so that we're left with just x. The way that you get rid of a multiplication of negative 2 is divide by a negative 2. Okay, now this is where we have to remember that special rule that we just learned about. If we divide by a negative, and we're going to have to do that on both sides, we have to flip our inequality symbol. So watch really carefully. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 leaves us with a positive 1x. We have to take and flip this inequality symbol so it looks like this. X is less than or equal to negative 4. Okay, so solving inequalities is just like solving equations, but if you divide by a negative, you have to flip the inequality symbol. Okay, let's go ahead and look at another one. Oh, this one's a little tricky. Question 3. If I were to put this over 1, can you guys see that this is a proportion? We have the fraction of negative 3 over 1 equal to the fraction of x plus 1 over 5. And remember that we learned in the equations with fractions lesson, whenever you have a proportion, to solve the proportion, you cross multiply. So 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. And then 1, this is going to be 1 times by x plus 1. So when we distribute the 1 times x is x. 1 times 1 is 1. Okay? Now from there, we just have to get this x by itself by getting rid of the plus 1. We're going to do a minus 1 on both sides. So negative 16 is less than or equal to x. Or we could say x is greater than or equal to negative 16. Okay, those are both the same. Easy, right? This should be really easy because you guys have such good solving equation skills now. Okay, let's look at example number 4. Okay, remember that solving inequalities is just like solving an equation. So whenever you solve an equation, if there's something that needs to be simplified, you take care of that first. As you guys look at this inequality statement, I hope you can easily see that this left side needs to be simplified. This negative 3 right here needs to be distributed to both of these terms inside the parentheses. So let's go ahead and do that first. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 7 is positive 21. And then we still have our negative 5. Okay, and we're not done simplifying yet. We want to make sure that we simplify completely before we move any further. And negative 5 and a positive 21, those are both constants. So we can make that a 16 minus 3x is less than x minus 3. Okay, now from there, we want to get these two terms that have the same variable to be on the same side. We can do that by either adding 3x to both sides or subtracting 1x. It's your choice. This leaves us with 16 is less than 4x, 4 times x minus 3. And now we've just got an easy two-step equation to solve. We get rid of the minus 3 by doing a plus 3. So 19 is less than 4 times x. From there, we divide by 4 on both sides. And you guys were not scared of fraction answers. We know that that's okay, because for this one we get a fraction answer. 19 divided by 4 is less than x. Okay, and if I were to graph this solution, 4 goes into 19 4 times with 3 left over. Okay, so 19/4 is just the same as 4 3/4. So if this were my 0, and this is 4, and this is 5, 4 3/4 is going to be somewhere right about here. Okay, and then we know that the x needs to be greater than 19/4 in order to give us a true statement. Okay, so any numbers that would be to the right of 4 3/4 give us a true statement. And you guys, that is it. Okay. The biggest trick here, remember, is that if you multiply or divide by a negative as your last step, you have to flip the inequality symbol. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a couple of practice questions. And just like your quiz questions, this is where you can see if you know how to do this. So if we have negative 3x, I'm going to try and write one just like your quiz. Plus 3 is less than or equal to 15. Let's see. Okay, so if we want to solve this inequality for the x, you guys can see that the x is right here on the left-hand side of our inequality, which means if we want that to be by itself, we have to get rid of the 3, the plus 3. We also have to get rid of the multiplication of negative 3. That's how x is going to end up alone. Okay, so to get rid of the plus 3, we do a minus 3 on both sides. Then we have negative 3 times x is less than or equal to 12. From there, to get rid of the multiplication of negative 3, we have to use division. Okay, can you guys see that we divided by a negative, right? To get rid of the multiplication of negative 3, we have to divide by a negative 3. And if we divide by a negative, we have to flip our inequality symbol. So x is greater than negative 4. Okay, and if I were to graph the solutions, and you guys don't have to, I just think it's a good way to look at what all of your possibilities are for this. So here's negative 4 on a number line. If we pick anything bigger than negative 4 or equal to negative 4, okay, that will give us a true statement. So that is just like question number 1. And now I'm going to show you one just like question number 2. I'm going to go ahead and just snip this really quickly. So I can write a question just like it. So new snip. Okay, so let me go ahead and write a question just like this one. So not this question, but one just like it for you to practice. So negative 15 is less than 13x minus 11x plus 8 plus 2. Okay, this one is a little bit tricky, and the reason that it's a little bit tricky is because when you are simplifying this right side, you have to remember to distribute this negative. And I know that we've talked about that, but make sure that you don't forget it, okay? Because there's a minus sign in front of this parentheses, it's going to change all of the signs of the terms inside the parentheses. So when we distribute that negative, it's like we're multiplying a negative 1 by both of these terms. So basically we end up with a negative 11x and a negative 8. Now, once you distribute that negative, it's gone. Okay, it's no longer there. And then just bring down what you have left. So 13x minus 11x minus 8 plus 2. And we're not done simplifying yet. Remember, we always have to simplify completely before we move forward with solving. When we look at like terms that we can combine here, we have a 13x and a negative 11x, and that would be a 2x. And then we also have a negative 8 and a positive 2, and that would be a negative 6. Okay, now from there, negative 15 is less than 2 times x minus 6. So negative 15 is less than 2 times x minus 6. Last step is to add 6 to both sides. Negative 9 is less than 2 times x, and then we divide by 2. Okay, one thing I want you to pay attention to is this is a negative, but what we're dividing by is a positive. The only time we flip the inequality symbol is if what we're dividing by is a negative. Okay, and then again we have a fraction answer, but I know that you guys aren't scared of fraction answers, right? It's okay to have a fraction answer. Okay, you guys, so it is your lucky day. Today, you only have 2 quiz questions. At this point, if you want to do your quiz in a breakout room up on the board and then let me look at it before you turn it in, I'm super happy to do that, so just raise your hand. If you feel like you're ready to take this quiz and you know how to do it, then turn in your quiz, and that is the last thing that you need to do for today, unless you have some other lessons that you need to catch up on. Okay, so with that said, I hope you guys have a really awesome day. If you're having any questions at all, ever in this class, I hope you know by now that Miss Kohler and I really want you to be successful. We want to help you. If you need extra help at any time, please text me. I'm happy to meet with you. I'm happy to help you. Remember that Math Lab is every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 3 to 5. Okay? So if you're having any questions at all, feel free to come to Math Lab. And with that said, I hope you guys have a really, really awesome day. Talk to you soon.